Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Dribbz Talks Podcast. We're bringing it to you real, raw and uncut. A safe place where we can talk about anything and everything. So like, share and subscribe. But most importantly, keep it locked. Everything's gonna be just fine. Everything's gonna be okay. Just take one step at a time. That's what the leaflets say. Right then, welcome to the next episode of Dribbz Talks, the fresh podcast where we're becoming real, raw and uncut. Now today, I've got a good friend of mine, a man that has done so much for so many charities and the community on a whole, a man with one of the finest beards in Telford, the man, the myth, the legend. He goes by the name of Lee Ellis. Thank you for joining me today, my mate.
Thank you.
There's that round of applause for you. So firstly, Lee, can you give the listeners an introduction of who you are and just yourself, your occupation, what you do?
Okay, this is one of the toughest questions you have to ask people, you know. I went for a job interview when I was a kid and they asked me that. And I stumbled then and I'll stumble now. I'm Lee Ellis. I'm from Birmingham. I live in Telford since 1996. This is my home. I'm a teacher by trade. I've been teaching now for coming to 13, 14 years, I think, working in the SEN schools, primarily with children in care. It's definitely a passion of mine. And sideline, I like to raise a few quid for charity.
Absolutely, yeah. So you mentioned about the teaching. Obviously, that's something that resonates with myself because I've done many years of teaching in SEN as well. Not currently now, but it's something that I might be looking to get into again in the future. With the teaching, can you give me a kind of an overview of your day-to-day duties?
Yeah, I mean, in that 13 years, I've obviously worked in a broad range of environments. You know, coming from working in quite a big school locally where a lot of the children had, you know, really, really traumatic backgrounds. And as you can imagine, the behaviours that they display were really broad. You know, don't get me wrong, it wasn't all bad. You know, you'd be laughing your head off at some of the things they said. But on other days, it was very, very violent. You know, no end of injuries my end. But it was what we do, you know. And since working at that school, you know, I've been out for drinks with some of the students, all above board. Don't worry, it was a reunion, you know. And they've all gone on to have children, or most of them have. They've got jobs and they're doing so well. And that right there is what feeds it. It's a very, very, very tough job.
Absolutely. And I think especially working with SEN, you know, no day is the same. You don't know what you're going to get from the start of the shift to the end.
Yeah, and that to be fair, I mean, waking up on a Monday morning, I've always said to myself, especially in the last 13 years teaching, because it's what I love to do, you know, that if I ever wake up on a Monday morning and dread going into work, that'll be the day that I try to find something different, because I absolutely love going into work and kind of not knowing what to expect. As I said, it's not all sunshine and rainbows. It can be a very, very stressful environment, you know, a lot of injuries and whatnot, but the outcomes are far outweigh the negatives, and thankfully now I'm working at a school where you know, there's no physical aspect to it. It's an absolute dream.
I think like when you've been doing SEN for, you know, a long time, it kind of gets in your blood, doesn't it, Lee? Like the thought of, I know when I was doing it, because I was a SEN teaching assistant for close to 15 years, and it was the best. You know, I loved the job. I absolutely loved the job. The pay was awful, but let's face it, is there money in education? No, there's not. But do we do it for the money? Yes, we do have to pay the bills, but you know, we do it for something far superior than just cash.
Yeah. And I think they see it. I think, you know, the majority of the students that I've taught, obviously, as I said, from the care system, when they're being taught, and you know, they'll say to you, "Oh, this is just a job." yeah, you are honest with them. Yeah, it pays my bills. It, allows me to have the life I've got. But I could certainly go and earn a lot more money somewhere else.
Yeah.
But, we see, there's a certain student I work with now that you cannot give any praise. She can't take it. And the majority of students are like that because they're just not used to that sort, to positivity. And I think that's where I come in, especially. I try to be a positive person. I see the best in pretty much everyone. And when I go into work, my aim is to make the school more positive than when I started. And it's not just about academics, as you'll know, especially with SEN, but all schools should adopt this in a way. The academics are fine, but it shouldn't be the bread and butter of the school. We should be turning these children into young adults that go on to do amazing in any field. Not just going out there and getting English and maths. I understand why, and as a science teacher, obviously, I should be sitting here going, "Oh yes, it's very, very important." It is, but it's also just as important, if not more, to turn them into great human beings. And
absolutely,
that's teaching kindness. And one of the things I'll talk about later is, the two Sarahs from the Be Kind Awards who I've linked up with. And their message to schools around the country about spreading the word of kindness and what it means. And it's not about being, I will try and be as PC as possible, but it's not about being namby-pamby and saying, go around with a massive smile on your face and give everybody a flower. It's about simple gestures. It's about showing people what kindness means to them as an individual. You know yourself. You walk into a room, you've got the power to change somebody's day instantly, and that can be for the positive and the negative. And we all have that choice to make every morning that we get up. Do I want to make somebody's day better? Of course we do. We want somebody to make our day better. But we all have the power to do that. You don't have to go out and, as I said, give somebody a PlayStation 5 or a brand new car. It could be a simple handshake. It could be a wave or a hello. That hello might be the only thing that person gets that day that's positive.
Definitely. I mean, I've seen it in first hand when we've took some of the children that I used to teach into society. You have the looks. People would move their children away from them, almost like they're going to catch these conditions, which is ridiculous, let's face it. But I've witnessed all that, and thank the Lord these kids were oblivious to it because of their understanding of the world. But I could see it, and it's sad. That's a sad thing. So being able to, I suppose it's not so much with yourself, but I got fully Makaton trained while I was at my last position. Right. So it was almost like sign language for children. A little bit different to BSL, British Sign Language, but I was able to communicate with these children then and say, "Hey, how are you?" No, they wouldn't normally understand, a verbal "Hey, how are you?" But to do the "Hello, how are you?" which I am signing. I know you guys can't see that right now, but Lee can see it, so that's the main thing. But
it's not what he's saying.
Absolutely, yeah. Kind of having that understanding and being able to get into their world, be it only a few seconds, it gives them, it makes them feel uplifted, and that's I understand totally what you mean about the whole being kind.
I think it's just about being a human being. Show emotion, of course. Show emotion. It's about being human to the children. I think that's really, really important. We're not robots, and I think that's where obviously our schools come in, because my schools are obviously different from yours, but the behavioural side, our children haven't been able to work in mainstream environments, and that's where we've come in. And I think the big thing about our kind of environments is that we have a little bit more freedom to be. And this isn't a knock to any kind of mainstream environment or teachers, because I couldn't do it. I really do look at them and think, wow, you're amazing. But we do have that little bit more freedom in our environment to be a little bit different. And I get that it's a bit difficult when you've got 35, 40 kids in a class. I couldn't imagine it. But I do think there needs to be an overhaul with teaching. This is just my opinion, of course, guys. As I said, I've not done it, but I do think there needs to be a massive overhaul with the education system in this country, because we are treating a lot of these children like they're robots. We're treating them like they're all one. Go and get your maths and English. They can't do that. Okay, but try. Give them extra lessons.
Absolutely.
Give them extra lessons for something they don't want to do in the first place.
Yeah, I think, I was always around a lot of behaviours, and people are very quick to judge these things. Again, taking these children into public and them displaying certain behaviours. One of the most important one-liners that I was ever told in the 15 years that I was working with SEND children was, every behaviour is a form of communication.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah.
So always keeping that in mind, it gives you a better understanding of these kids.
Yeah.
And keeping in mind, like, as I was explaining to you earlier, we had a little discussion about family life, and I was saying about with my daughter having autism, the world will not adapt for that one person. You have to make that one person adapt to the world.
Yep.
And that's where you give them building blocks for them to step into society. But I can say this because I'm out of the role now, but I think they should spend less time learning about the Romans and about lots of significant history moments, and more time learning about life lessons, learning about buttering bread.
Yeah.
Tying shoelaces, if they're at all capable to do that.
Yeah.
Very small things, and it's really, really important to celebrate them small things.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And I think at a young age, if a child is, progressing well and getting through the life challenges, like, as you said, it depends on the child, obviously. Tying shoelaces can be a massive challenge to anybody.
Absolutely.
And I think, as you say, if they're progressing through life and they're doing really well, and we find time in the education for them to do about the Romans, then fine, let's do it. But, as you say, let's find out what's important. Let's find out what makes this child tick and use it. You'll know yourself in the music industry that you're in. A lot of children are missed. They are missed. It's the same with sports. It's the same with everything. We're missing so much talent in this country because we are channeling these children into a one-size-fits-all. And also, let's face it, it's to make people look good. It is to make people look good, and I am so fortunate that the company I work for are there for the child. Obviously, they're there to make money. They're a company. But you know what? I wouldn't be. You know me. I would not be at a company that does not look after the child.
No, I think you're very strong on your beliefs and what you stand for, and that's an amazing quality to have. What made you first get into teaching? Was there a significant moment?
Oh yeah, you're gonna love it.
Come on, let's have this story.
I was working in care homes for a company down the road, and I absolutely detested shifts. I loved working in the care homes. I'm going to raise this right now. Ad's moving because his dog is snoring. Most beautiful dog ever.
Honestly, if I keep him inside the studio, he snores. If I keep him outside the studio, he barks. So we have to find this middle ground here, Lee. So yeah, if you can hear a lot of rustling around,
let him snore.
This is me. The whole point of these podcasts is they're real, raw, they're uncut.
And anyone that wants to come on gets to meet this amazing dog.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So sorry. I was working in the care homes, absolutely loved my job, just did not like the shifts. Went into school one day, which was part of the same company, and I noticed on the notice board that there was a role for an instructor. I had no clue what an instructor was. Now, luckily, I did all right at school and college. Had no idea what I was going to do with those qualifications, but I sat on them for a good 15 years, and I applied for this instructor role just because it was Monday to Friday. I didn't want to necessarily teach. I had no idea what I wanted to do, but I applied for it, and thanks to a wonderful woman called Louise, was my first head teacher I worked for. She said, and she still says now, I'm still in touch with her now, I saw the talent. I'm not sure about that, but she gave me a chance, and as I said, I did it purely for the hours. And I was supporting a wonderful maths teacher, and with the nature of the role, he was injured for quite a while, and I spoke to the head teacher at the time and said, look, don't get a supply teacher in, could I lead maths for a few weeks? It turned out to be a few months. Could I lead maths, please? I'm doing well with the kids, and I think a supply teacher might, unsettle them. She said yes, as long as you're sure. And you know who turns up at the door? Ofsted. And everyone,
dun, dun, dun.
Yeah, everyone's panicking except for me, because I was thinking, well, what's the worst that's going to happen? So, I was Ofsted inspected. A good 3-day inspection. I think my lessons were observed being maths quite, 2 or 3 times. Had an amazing Ofsted inspector, and it was the days of feedback. And I went into this feedback, and I'll always remember him saying it was brilliant, the word brilliant. And I've got to be honest, what year was this? 2012? Yeah, so I was about 30 at the time. And I think it was the first time in my working life where I was proud of something. I've never been unemployed. I've always worked, but this was genuinely one of the first times where I was proud. And almost immediately, I went into the head teacher's office and said, right, how do I become a teacher? And that's what I did. I spent the next... I don't think I've stopped. I'm fully qualified now. Have been for a while, but I'm still doing qualifications even now to go even further. But yeah, that was it. It was for the hours, but I genuinely now couldn't think of anything else.
The rest is history. Yeah.
The rest is history. Yeah,
Absolutely.
I've given up on my dancing career. I've given up on my singing career. None of that existed, but
we're not just doing that part time now, Lee. No.
No.
So teachers, as you know, that we have a massive impact on these young people. Do you personally remember a time growing up where a teacher had such a significant impact on you?
This is a really difficult one because I moved around a lot as a kid. I lived in Manchester, Scotland, quite a few places in the Midlands. So there was a number of teachers that sort of stood out. Nothing like the movies, where you're sat behind in a class and they give you this speech that turns you into something else. No, nothing like that. But I'll always remember I was bullied badly as a kid, all the way up until, truthfully, till I moved to Telford. It got a bit better then. But yeah, I was bullied basically just because I was poor and I was ginger. So, good mix. And there was one teacher where I went to school in Manchester, very rough school, and this teacher just came over to me one day and just put his arm around me and walked me to his office. He didn't say anything. Nothing I can remember. But he just sat me down in this warm... I just remember it being warm. 30 seconds before I'd been spat. Somebody had spat in my face. And it was genuinely because I was walking around on my own, so I had no friends. And him and his mate stopped me and spat in my face. And
because that's a perfect reason to be spitting in someone's face.
Yeah. I still remember his name. I'm not going to say it. And he, as I say, he walked me to his office, the staff room office area, and just remember it being warm. And he made me a cup of tea, or coffee, or whatever it was. But that small act, he didn't have to say anything, didn't have to do anything other than just take me under his arm and support me. Do you know what I mean? And I've got to admit, I was a Charlton boy in Telford, and we had loads of wicked teachers there. They to be fair, I was very, very lucky there. They were good teachers. And college, I had a couple of teachers at New College that were awesome as well. Simon Hoyle was one. We terrored that guy. Terrored him. I saw him in the pub a few weeks ago, and we used to hide in the basement. Remember Sugar Ray's in Wellington?
No, that's a bit before my time.
Sugar Ray's.
Sugar Ray's, is that the old Cali bar?
No. It was the King's Head in Wellington.
Oh, Wellington.
Turned into the King's Head, and we used to go in there for a lunchtime tipple.
As you do.
And then it would turn into a few, and then we would hide in the basement because we'd heard that Simon was coming over to find us. And I told him this story the other day in the pub, and then he found it quite amusing. It wasn't amusing at the time for him, but it was for us.
Yeah, I think
don't do that, kids.
Yeah,
don't do that.
If there's a disclaimer, do not.
That was college, by the way. I was old enough.
Do not copy anything that Lee says unless it's a positive. Which a lot of things that Lee says are very, very positive. But as I said, this is real, raw and uncut. You know, everything and anything goes. So, yeah, I think it's massively important as a teacher to get on a level with these children. They respond to you a lot better than they would of a teacher that comes in who has some form of hierarchy. So going on from that then, obviously there's still a massive shortage of teachers in the system. There's a lot of shortage of male teachers in the system. I found that was kind of a big thing.
Well, I work in a girls' school, and you wouldn't, but I don't know. Do people think it's best to have male or female teachers? I wouldn't know.
I don't know. But I think they take positives out of both. Genders,
yeah. But we are mainly female teachers, and don't get me wrong, they are amazing. But yeah, we could do with more males, especially in this kind of environment, because they need that positive role model.
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
The girls that I've taught in the past at many schools have not had the best male role models in their life, and it's really important for us to build relationships with these girls, these children, male and female. And just because even the males, the male children, they too have had very negative experiences with males, and it's really important for us to show them that there are positive male role models out there.
Break the stigma, Lee. Break the stigma.
Absolutely.
So for the listeners, if we have any listeners that may want to look at getting into teaching, can you give a bit of sterling advice that you might pass on to any perspiring teachers?
Yeah, I think for me, I mean, you will be guided into a certain mould, sadly, and find the right school. That is my advice. Find the right school, because I've been lucky. I've worked at a couple that are outstanding, and I don't mean outstanding by Ofsted's measure. I mean outstanding by the outcomes to the children. And again, that's not academic. An outcome for a child, for me, is have they left that school in a better way than when they came in, as a human being. And I think once you find that school that fits, and it might take you several schools. A head teacher said to me years ago, never stay at school for longer than 3 years. Now, that doesn't apply to me because I've always stayed. I'm quite loyal, but I can understand it, because you do get fixed and you do get to a certain, you can become stagnant. But my advice would be definitely find the right school for you, find the right fit. What you did add, I don't think I could go and work doing that. Mainstream wouldn't suit me. So it is about finding the right school, 100%. It's about being passionate about what you're delivering. I've taught maths, I've taught science, I've taught most subjects, but I'm passionate about science. I'm a bit of a geek, so I get that across with the children. I think that's the best part to engage a child, is show them that you care about what you're teaching.
Absolutely.
If I'm in there teaching them about mechanics or something else I have absolutely no idea about, they're going to know. They're going to know. And lastly, be yourself. You know yourself, Ad, that you go into these kind of environments with these children, and they will know straight away whether you are yourself or not. They will know if you're faking it.
Yeah, 100%.
They want somebody real. They want to be sat with somebody real. So just be passionate, be real, and find what fits for you, because as I say, there's a stereotype out there for teachers. I had a phone call from my niece a few weeks back, and she's only young, saying that the teacher shouted at her. And again, I'm not going to tell teachers how to do their job. I'm not, but I've worked with serious behaviours for 15 years, and I'll tell you now that shouting does not work. No. It does not work, and I don't care who you are. I will prove this in a teaching environment.
They almost become like that used to it, that isn't.
Absolutely.
Do you know what I mean?
I mean, if someone shouts at me, I ain't going to respond to them.
No,
I'm sorry, but I'm not, and I'm 42, and yes, I got shouted at as a kid, and it put the fear of God in me. But you know what? Fear is not good in a classroom. No. Respect is, and that's different to fear. You can, and people will argue this, and they'll say, "Oh, I had respect when I was a kid." Well, possibly, but you also had a lot of fear.
Yeah.
And fear is not good in the classroom.
100%.
You should not be scaring the kids that you're teaching.
Yeah, 100%.
And that's it. And I think that this is the thing. Some people get into teaching and think that this is how I have to be. This is how I've got to be. I've seen this on TV. This is what we do. No, be yourself. And if you don't agree with the way the school's running, you don't agree with the people around you, then look into it and go somewhere else. Don't be afraid to go and find somewhere else.
I think that's what happened with me. You know, I can say that now because I've completely broke ties with my previous employer. Obviously mentioning no names, but the school that I started at 15 years ago to the school it is now, and everything that they stand for now, I didn't want to be a part of that.
Yeah.
I'd seen staff. People had noticed with myself that I'd lost my spring in my step.
Yeah.
The gleam in my eye. We were overworked.
It's not easy. It's easy to lose all that as well.
And I think once you've lost that, it's really hard to get it back.
Very, yeah.
I'd lost any kind of good feelings about going to work. I used to get up for work and aside from being on next to minimum wage, I'd feel, man, I'm so lucky that I actually enjoy going to work.
You were a TA, right?
TA.
I was literally talking about the wages you guys are on, and it's abysmal.
And what's bad is mainstream TAs get paid more money than SEN TAs, and SEN TAs have to do personal care.
Yep.
There is a lot more involved with mainstream TAs. They can't even put a plaster on these kids nowadays. Whereas a SEN TA, there's a lot more involved in it, you know. We are looking after very, very dangerously poorly children, as you well know, you know. And I just think the school that I started at to the school it is now is a totally different kind of school, you know. They still very much care about the children, but for me, I just wanted a new beginning and to move on. 15 years is a long time, as you said, to stay in one place. And that's kind of where I am now. I'm still at the tender age of 37 and not really knowing what I want to do in life.
I remember them days.
And this is another thing, you know, my daughter's 15, my daughter now is 16, sorry, and I've got one that's 12, and they're continuously getting told, what do you want to do for the rest of your life? What do you want to do for the rest of your life? If I'm at the age of 37 and I'm still unsure on long term what I want to do, how can a child of 14, 15, 16 know what they want to do?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And I think that's where you find children will jump into educational courses and stuff like that half-heartedly, not because, you know, just for the sake of it, just to keep them adults, just to shut them adults up. Drilling it into them about they need to do something, they need to know what they want to do. Like, that's such a massive thing for such a child of a young age to know what they want to do.
And it puts that, I mean, don't get me wrong, I understand why people try to guide children into certain careers. I get it, I 100% get it. My dad was always very, you know, I grew up, my dad was a police officer, and my dad was, you know, very, very passionate about me being in the armed forces, and I could see why. You know, the career, you know, the discipline and whatnot. But it wasn't for me. You know, I applied and went through all the right channels and stuff. Didn't get in. I'm glad now, but at the time it was quite traumatic, and I think, you know, I didn't have the heart back then to tell my old man that I didn't want to do it. He knows now, you know, he wasn't pushy. It was just something he thought would be good for me. But yeah, I think...
So when you say the armed forces, you mean like the army and stuff, right?
Yeah, so Air Force, Navy. I didn't look at the army. It was the Air Force and the Navy I looked at.
It's funny you should say about the armed forces, because I did an interview with a chap that came over to my studio for... the Scene magazine, for my mental health interviews, and that was with a veteran, and you know, he signed up for the army, the territorial army, you know, to start off with, and then went into light infantry and did many tours around so many different places, and he gave me such an interesting insight, because to me, a civilian, as the army call us, you know, we're all civilians. He gave me an insight into how it was drummed into him that he was different to society, and they now owned him and moulded him into he should be. And, you know, he explained that while he was on tours, he didn't really have much things to do, so any money that he'd have, he would spend in bars with the rest of the squaddies.
Yeah.
And now he's left, now he's left there, he has no money management skills whatsoever.
Yeah.
Because, he's done that for so many years.
Yeah.
And I think things like that, they're not always for the good.
No, but I think, again, I'm not speaking on behalf of people in the military. I've never been there. But I do think as well that depends on the person. It's the same with any environment that you're in, that if you go into a job or whatever, and I can understand it with the armed forces. I mean, you're very well looked after. Well, to a degree. I don't mean that but what I mean is that you've got, in some cases you've got housing, you've got some, so sometimes you don't need to look any further for paying your bills and whatnot. But I think it depends on the person. You may wish to learn those skills, and may not know where to look. But I think that goes for a lot of people nowadays. My wife was saying the other day about, we weren't told about tax, we weren't told about stamp duty, we weren't told about. I was lucky. My old man was all savvy on stuff like that. So, we were told from a young age about stuff like that. But, it isn't taught. And as you were saying about, what's more important about learning about stamp duty and, I still don't know what APR stands. I don't know what APR is. But isn't that more important than finding out about the Santa Maria? That's a ship, I think. But it's the Santa Maria, Vasco. These are names I'm remembering from school. Vasco da Gama. I can't remember what he did. I have no idea. Was it he? Yeah, it was he.
This is history related, right?
Yeah, history. I don't teach history. I love history.
I love history too, but local history is my kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I remember that the Battle of Hastings was 1066.
Nice. Yeah.
Ask me further more information about the Battle of Hastings. I wouldn't be able to tell you, but that date's kind of stuck.
But you probably wasted. No, sorry, that's not right. You probably did a whole term. We're talking about nearly 2 months on the Battle of Hastings. Now, that time could have been spent learning about, and let's face it, to be fair, you've got to try and make it interesting, because if somebody had tried teaching me about APR instead of teaching me about the Romans, my great history teacher, Mr. Tanner, I mean, he taught me about the Native Americans, and they were the greatest history lessons ever, because we just got to watch Dances with Wolves. But I learned so much. But in truth, I mean, I get this daily from my science students. What do I need to know about the periodic table for? And I can't answer that. I'm like, you know what? I don't know, but just stick with it, please.
Yeah, just stick with it. Yeah, 100%. So moving on from the teaching, because there's so much more to you than just the teaching, Lee, although that is a massive part of you. Aside from that, I'm aware of you creating your own pop-up shop in Telford called, am I right in saying New to You?
It is, yeah.
You, as in
New to You, NU to You, yeah.
NU to You.
And I've got to be clear that it wasn't just me. It wasn't just me. It was a wonderful, I'm going to call him friend. Yeah, he was definitely a friend. He was a colleague, friend, Rob Smart, local man. Yeah, and he's an absolute treasure of a bloke.
Okay, so you and Rob obviously set up New to You. Can you explain what the aim was with setting that kind of is it a pop-up shop? Would you go as far as
it started off as a pop-up shop? So what it was, we both worked. We both took 2 years out from teaching. We both worked at the same school. I went on to do further education. Absolutely detested it, and I saw a job advertised. I thought, that sounds familiar. So I rang my mate Rob and I said, "Do you work here?" And he said, "Yeah." So I got the job working for this amazing charity in Telford called Talent Match. We were supporting 18 to 24-year-olds finding work. Now that's how it started. It was lottery funded, and that's how it started. But it sort of morphed into doing anything to help 18 to 24-year-olds. We started art clubs, we started movie clubs to improve the social side of things. 18 to 24-year-olds now are not the same as when we were 18 to 24. There's a lot of social anxiety, a lot more of it nowadays. And we were just getting the young people out doing things. I was organising community work, litter picks and, whatnot. And it worked a treat. It started off small, a couple of people would turn up, and then they'd speak to their friends, and then you'd have 15, 20 young people. And again, that's going back to giving them a chance. They get funny looks. They go, there was one lad, and I really hope he listens to this. His name was Zach, Donington boy, and he didn't have autism. He has autism, and he would find it very difficult to find a job. He would, but I tell you what, you won't find a grafter. Grafter, sweetest lad you've ever met. Honestly. He's an absolute. I haven't seen him for years, but what a treasure he was.
And this is the thing with autism, people. There's this stigma around. Although autism is now becoming more widely accepted, there was this stigma around autism. They were more focusing on the things that they couldn't do as opposed to the things they can do. And with autism, they're consistent, good timekeeping. There's a lot of things that employees would.
Zach would be at the door like 20 minutes before everyone else.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that employees would actually jump at.
Yeah.
With traits of autism, I can always remember when I was doing a course very early before I actually got into the teaching side of special needs. There was a course at TCAT called Understanding Special Education Needs. It was complete foreign to me, I hadn't really been around anyone that had special needs, and I just thought I'll give this a go. And I do remember our tutor, a lady called Paula. She was a lovely lady. She was telling us about there's employees in America that will only take autistic people,
right?
Because they are grafters. Their timekeeping is impeccable. You don't find them their mind wandering off to other stuff on the job. They're focused on it.
Yeah.
And that's
which is totally different to me. I'm constantly wandering off.
That's the great thing about it. There is a lot of positives on that. So going back to this pop-up shop. It's okay. This new to you, like. What charities were involved in that, or did you kind of set up an independent charity yourself?
So we didn't set up a charity, basically because I didn't want the paperwork. So I found a way. We ummed and ahed it, me and Rob. How do we make this work? And I think I literally just sat there the one day and went, why do we need money? Why do we need to why does there need to be a transaction? Because we toyed with a token system. You come and donate a shirt. We'll give you a token. That means you can get something from the shop. I can't be bothered. You know what? Just come in. So how it worked was we put a call out, and originally it was just to help young people with smart clothing for interviews. Then we had a visit from a lovely local lady. I think her name was Lisa, and at the time Lisa was living on the streets, and she's coming with her lovely little dog. And she asked if we could help her out with a few items. So I had a look in the storage of stuff we collected, and we managed to get loads of stuff for her. Got her a sleeping bag. There was a lady who was doing hot water bottles as well for the homeless. So we managed to sort her a hot water bottle, and it snowballed from there really. So then I was like, oh, I'll tell you what, we'll help the homeless as well. And then people were donating pretty much everything then. So we had clothing, we had toiletries, we had everything. So I just went, all right, I'm just going to do everything. And it was literally that. Meeting Point House, a wonderful woman. I hope you're listening. She's no longer at Meeting Point House. Her name was Angela. She was the manager there. Wouldn't have happened without her. She donated the room, the storage room, everything. And the idea was that we would give away toiletries and clothing and anything else that we could get our hands on for absolutely free. And then we had the question of, well, how do you know people are not going to take advantage? And I said, I don't care. I don't care. The reason I don't care is that if you feel that you need to come and take a bag full of clothing and you maybe don't need them and you're going to go and sell them, then you maybe need them.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
It wouldn't work in today's environment because of Vinted.
That's very true.
Hence why I've not set a new one up. There was an idea of setting a new one up, but I just can't do it nowadays. So yeah, New to You was founded, and we had all of the young people, including our Zach, come and work there while I worked at Talent Match. And then I left Talent Match to go back to teaching, and thought that was the end of new to you. So when I started my new school, I spoke to the head teacher, Craig, and said, look, I've got an idea. If I could get my shop up and running, how would you feel about me opening it up with the students from here? Now, these students, as I said, are from care homes. A lot of them are from care, but they've all been pretty much either excluded from mainstream schools or couldn't cope in a mainstream environment. So we did it. We got it up and running, and basically had. I couldn't even guess how many children I've had working in that shop over the years. But thousands of items of clothing, toiletries have gone to help people. Ukrainian refugees were there at some point.
I must say, I mean, sorry to cut you up here, but I must say, like the two things I noticed when I was looking at New to Telford when you guys had launched that was the Keep Warm project. I thought that was amazing. I don't know how successful that was, but that was brilliant. Where you were giving away like free items to keep vulnerable people warm, especially in the light of the fuel prices and whatnot. And the second one, I seen that you guys donated batches of T-shirts that were gifted to you by TK Maxx. Was it to the K22 charity?
Oh yeah.
That looked amazing.
Oh, do you know what?
Was it Ghana? Am I right in saying Ghana?
Yeah,
wow, them pictures.
Again, this is something I was going to talk about. It's about those interactions, the people you meet in life, and about the impact that simple meetings can have. So. A lady messaged me who worked at TK Maxx in Telford and said, we've got a load of brand new T-shirts here from Comic Relief from years ago that hadn't sold. Do you want them? And I said, well, we'll see how it goes and whatnot. So we put them in the shop, and a few went here and there. And then one night I'd been out for a few fizzy drinks and was talking to a taxi driver. And he's from Ghana. I tend to talk to taxi drivers all the time. But
does it start with... You been busy, mate?
No, I never. Do you know what? It's on the tip of my tongue. It's on the tip of the tongue, but I never do.
Oh God.
No, I literally started to. I was asking this taxi driver, talking about where he was from, and he said he was from Ghana, and he told me about some things he did for Ghana, and one of them was this K22 or K22, and he basically said that he goes over to Ghana every 3 or 4 months with clothing for the children in his local villages, and I said, well. I'll help. And he admitted afterwards he thought it was just a drunken conversation. And he didn't think anything was going to come of it. But I'd got his number, and I think I messaged him the next day and said, I've got these things for you. Do you want to come and get them? And then he sent me these pictures of these children, and oh man, honestly. And before anybody, rants and raves, because I've had this, believe it or not, over the years. I've been fundraising for 11 years now, and you wouldn't believe the amount of times I've heard, help our own first. Help our own first. Believe me, I have raised thousands for our, as you put it, our own. But anyway, these children were, oh man, honestly, the smiles on their faces, the videos of them smiling, the dog's farted.
The dog has indeed farted.
The smile on their faces, these children were walking around in barefoot in these villages, and you could see behind them they didn't have much, but the simple gesture of a T-shirt was unbelievable, and nothing wiped that smile off my face that day. Well, for that week. Even now, I'm sitting here. It must have been probably 4 or 5 years ago. Oh man,
it's still stuck with you to this day.
Do you know what? You've just reminded me, genuinely.
Yeah, I'm glad I did. Yeah. I'm glad I did. That's the whole reason with these podcasts. I like to look into things that you've done, and I'm grateful to have been a friend of yours for quite some time now. And I always keep tabs on stuff, and you've been doing amazing things, and that's hence the reason why I wanted you for this podcast, because I think you're a very interesting person with a really good heart.
And I'm cheap.
Well, yeah. This is it. Just a brew, and I haven't even made you that. You brought your own brew with you, but So I'm going to move on from that. It's still relating to awesome things and recognition that you sorely deserve, although you don't look for recognition. Back in 2012, you had the pleasure of carrying the Olympic torch through your hometown of Telford. Am I going to say 12? Was it 2012?
No. It was 2020. Oh, it was my 40th birthday year. Yeah, so it was 2022, and it was the Commonwealth
Was it 2022?
22, yeah.
Apologies.
Yeah.
Right, okay. So obviously you carried the torch through Telford. How was that feeling, and how did you come about being able to do that in the first place?
I was nominated by a few people, which I'd never found out all of them. One of my biggest supporters is my sister. I know that she nominated me. But a wonderful man who I always nominate for anything I can, because he's an inspiration to me. It's Andy Fanazzi. I raise money for his son quite a lot, Liam, which we'll probably talk about later. But Andy's a wonderful human. His whole family are wonderful, but Andy
and Kerry, am I right?
That's right. Yeah, wonderful family. Andy nominated me, and I nominated him, and he was chosen. Then I was chosen.
Wow.
So, yeah. So I got an email to say that I'd been selected, and I always remember I was in TK Maxx doing the worst thing ever, shopping. And I was just absolutely buzzing. I was absolutely buzzing.
And how cool is it that you and Andy got?
He got to do it in Shrewsbury, where he lives.
So did he push Liam whilst doing it then? Did he? Or?
He did, yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's amazing. They are a fantastic family, and it's families like that continuously strive and live for the better of their child. It's
unbelievable. If you don't know who we're talking about, there is a page. And I'm really sorry, I share this page all the time. It is Liam Fanazzi. That's FINAZZI. And I can't remember the name of his page now. That's really bad. But if you search Liam Fanazzi, there is a page for him, for the young boy. And you'll see the amazing work that his family do to get into his therapies and whatnot. Absolutely. He had leukemia at a very, very young age. And whilst he was having chemo, he contracted a cold, which kicked his immune system into some kind of overdrive, which believe it or not, cured the leukemia.
Wow.
But gave him a brain infection, which rendered him heavily disabled.
And this boy is an amazing boy. I've had the pleasure of teaching Liam for 2 years now. In my previous job.
Wow, okay. Do you know, I didn't know that.
Did you not?
No.
You know now.
You know
now, yeah. So Liam was in my class. Amazing boy. And, his parents, that, like I said, strive for the better of Liam is just... Yeah, commendable. Yeah. And his sibling as well, Callum. I always think, I'm going on with my children as well, with my one daughter having autism. I always think the siblings don't get the credit they deserve.
This is one thing that Callum, and one day I hope he listens to this and understand. I've told him to his face, and I've told him over message, Callum Fanazzi, if any future employer hears that name, you make sure you employ this boy.
Yeah.
Okay, because he has gone above and beyond for not just his brother, but for local appeals and charities whilst looking after his brother. And I don't just mean being a big brother, he has been a saint to his little brother.
Callum, you're amazing, mate. You're amazing.
And that lad, I mean, Andy gave me one of the biggest compliments I've ever heard, is that Callum, when he set up Cal Sibs years ago, which was to support siblings of other children, he said that he was inspired by me and my work that I'd done. Now that was huge, but again, that's that impact thing.
Yeah, of course.
But Callum, unreal.
Yeah. No, I've had the pleasure of teaching Liam for a few years, and he's just the most beautifulest little boy. Not so little now. He's getting quite a big boy now, but he's just got an amazing personality. And if you get into his world, you can really capture some beautiful moments. And as I said, shouts to Andy, shouts to Kerry, because they not all heroes wear capes, and there they are. Do you know what I mean? So it's a very commendable thing. So moving on from that then, you were nominated obviously to carry the torch. You mentioned
hottest
earlier,
day of the year.
was
I
it
might
really?
add. Oh
was
my
it really?
God, it's horrible.
Did you have one of them sexy white tracksuits on as well?
It was a white top, which was actually quite nice and light.
Okay.
But the trousers were long and grey.
Okay.
Hottest day of the year. My students came out.
And you're carrying fire on top of this?
No, there's no fire with the Commonwealth.
Is there not? Oh, okay.
It's No, so it wasn't a torch. It's a batten.
Right.
So it's the same sort of shape. I don't know why I'm showing. Yeah, but it's the same sort of shape.
You're showing me. I can see.
It was heavy.
See. Was it?
Yeah, it was heavy. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was an absolute dream.
Yeah.
It really was, yeah. It was walking through Telford Town Park. As I say, hottest day of the year. My students were there. My family were there. My friends were there. Yeah, it was
one of them moments you'll take to your grave. Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah, it's
I like
quality.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. So you obviously spoke earlier about being nominated for a Be Kind award.
Yeah.
So let's get into that. So how did it feel to be up for nomination? And what was the whole experience like? Did you attend an awards evening? What was it all about?
Yeah, so the Be Kind Awards, they were an award ceremony, or they are an award ceremony, run by two Sarahs, two teachers, and they recognise, during the pandemic, they recognised that there was no real awards out there for schools, for students, and for some of the teachers as well, for the hard work that they do in the community or whatnot. So, so what we found, anyway, we were nominated for these awards, and I found out about it, and it was for a Star School Award, and it was for our work with New to You and taking the students and basically the work that we'd done. And we were invited to Manchester to go to the Be Kind Awards, and it was absolutely amazing. Yeah, took my students with me. We all dressed up smart, and I remember being in a line with my students, and we had no idea. We just got told we were nominated, but when we were there, we were told we won, and the look of my students was just amazing. It was just mint, because as you know, I do it for them. You know what I mean? It was epic, and I've been asked by Sarah to kind of be to be part of the awards every year now. So I went up there in July this year and did a speech and presented an award about kindness. So yeah, it's a massive play in my life, and the CEO, believe it or not, of the company I work for, Cliff, he's all about kindness, and that's one of the biggest things that attracted me to the company. It's kindness. I mean, we, realistically, we're not always kind. We're not always kind to ourselves, not always kind to the people around us, but that's the way forward. It is. Yeah.
So would that be the same awards as the Telford community? Because
that was another one.
Am I right in saying that you won the unsung?
I was
nominated.
No, I was nominated. I was
okay.
Yeah. So I was like a runner-up. Yeah.
Okay. That's still amazing to get that recognition.
Lost out
of being
to a
nominated.
Lovely man.
Okay.
Called Chun Bagri from Telford.
Okay.
Yeah.
Big up Chun Bagri.
Yeah.
And what does he do?
He did loads for the community during the pandemic, and that's primarily why he won. But he does so much for charity anyway. I pretty much made friends with him since the awards, and he's a wonderful man.
And it's a fantastic place to network as well, isn't it?
It was actually,
That's the main thing with it. You can network,
Yeah, it drives my wife mental. It really does, because we were at the Telford Golf and Country Golf and Spa Hotel.
Yeah.
It was
the
Telford
one in Horsey?
That's no, Sutton Hill.
Oh, Sutton Hill. Okay, yeah. Cool.
Yeah. So it was the Telford Community Pride Awards, and I was up for, I think it was the fundraiser. But it was just amazing being part of it. And then, as I said, the networking part, the manager of the hotel saw my video, and obviously I didn't win, but he come over and said, I'd really like to invite you and your wife for a weekend stay here, as a way of saying thank you.
Amazing.
Well, it was, but I said no. I said, can I have it as a prize instead, please, for a charity raffle? So my wife was like, no. So we ended up using it for a charity raffle in the end. But yeah, that's you all over. I know you. I've got everything I need. That's the thing.
Yeah, and that's you all over, and that's great. I know I've just said it before with the Finazzi family. Not all heroes wear capes, but I personally think that has never been so applicable than yourself, and I want you to know that.
That means a lot.
I genuinely want you to know that. Do you think with all this, helping the community, and we will move on from this soon, but do you think there was a particular moment in your life which made you think, I want to make a difference to the community, or is it just kind of the way you were raised, Oh,
it's really, there was, yeah, I mean, the way I was raised, I mean, the big thing in our house was respect, manners. That was a big thing in our house, was manners, respect, and I'm really glad that we were brought up like that, because, I'm big on it too, and my mum and dad were good people, my dad's still with us, he is a good person, but my mum, bless her, she was a great person, but I always, because I was bullied, I used to really latch on to people that made me feel good. And I'd always notice things about people. There was a kid I went to school with in Scotland. He was a year above me, and whatever room he walked into, he was always smiling. Not one of them weird smiles, but he'd always be happy. But everyone around, he was super popular, super good at sports and all this. But everybody loved it when he walked in the room, and I used to look at him and think, "Wish I could do that. And then I'd notice other people doing it. Oh, I wish I could do that. And then my Uncle Terry, oh man, lovely man, bless him. But he was the same. He'd walk into a room and everybody just feel happier because he was there. And there's a couple of other people in my life now that, my wife's stepdad, Ozzy, he's the same. He's just very, very positive. He's just got over cancer, but you wouldn't have known it.
Yeah.
He's in his 70s. He's gone through chemo, and he was just like, what's people worse off? Oh, okay. And it's about that positive thing. And as for charity, I kind of didn't know how to do it. Well, not how to do it, but I don't know. And then in 2013, I was watching the news, and there was a story about a man in Wolverhampton called Tom Atwater, and he had a terminal brain tumour, and he was looking to raise £500,000 for his daughter, because if her cancer relapsed, the NHS wouldn't fund it. It was neuroblastoma, and so once you relapse, and there's an 80% chance of relapse, I think it was a Kelly Smith appeal, and I think Kelly at the time was about hang on a minute, I know how old she was, 4, and it broke my heart. How could this guy who's dying find the strength to raise £500,000 for somebody else? I know it was his daughter, but somebody else. I'm sitting there with a bad back going, oh God, I'm in pain, oh God, cold or whatever. And this man's doing this. So it really, really hit hard. And I was like, wow, I'm going to do something. So I contacted Tom and said, look, I'll raise a couple of £100 for you, if that'll help. And he was lovely. No matter what time it was, he'd always message me back with advice. So I set a fundraising, Just Giving page up for £200. And I think in the end I raised about 7,000.
Wow.
And it became addictive, and watching Kelly, this was, as I say, 11 years ago, Kelly's now a young lady and doing very, very well. Now, luckily, she's never needed that money. So that money will then get passed through to, I think it's called Families Against Neuroblastoma. So the money gets distributed to other children. Mm-hmm. But again, we're talking about impact. Positive impact. Tom had a positive impact on me. Now, obviously, Tom's no longer with us anymore, but I'm still in touch with his widow Jolie and Kelly and Fletcher, Tom's son. Tom managed to they had a son just before he passed away, which is great. And it turns out through ancestry, found out recently that Jolie's actually my second cousin as well.
That's crazy.
So that's amazing. So once I'd finished raising for the Kelly Smith appeal, and I think that was a couple of years of my life, positive of my life, because it was target, we had to hit it, and I'll always remember hitting that 500,000. Not me personally, but Tom hitting that 500,000. I messaged him saying, "Mate, have you seen this? Have you seen it? He went, "No," and he had a look, and he's like, "Oh my God, we'd hit it." So. After that, it was literally just a case of, I made a vow then, and I made a vow to Tom just before he died, I think his last day. I messaged him on Facebook and said, my vow is to never stop. you know. And I'm not saying I won't slow down, because I have slowed down since, you know, losing my mom and stuff. My personal things do get on top of you, but I'll never stop, because that passion now is to help. And it, you know, I do raise for many appeals and charities and whatnot, but I do tend to go for local children. But I've also raised for, and I've made very good friends from it. I've raised money for a family in Australia. I read a story in the news. It has to be, you know, if it hits me, I'll do it.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
that's the thing with me, is if it hits, I'll do it. I'll
Yeah.
try it, because I want. It's easy for us all to go, oh, I wish I could. Well, let's do it then.
Let's do it.
Let's
Yeah.
do it. Let's do it. Let's do it. And, you know, this family in Australia, I only raised, I think, £200. But I've made friends for life. Hayley's all good now. She's doing well. She's got over her cancer, bless her. And I've made friends for life on the other side of the world.
That's amazing. What an amazing feeling.
It is, and that's why I'll keep doing it, you
Yeah.
know. And, you know, Liam, as we've just spoke about, you know, I regularly do fundraisers for Liam through various avenues of bugging Richie Woodall to sign things for me, and, you know, and that's it. You know, it's just about finding new ways of raising money, really.
Yeah, absolutely. So I know that your talent doesn't stop there. You are a very talented artist. You hand draw commissioned pieces for many different people. Have you been drawing all your life, or is this something? You have.
Yeah.
So, what do you think? How long have you been drawing? If it's been since a young age, and what's the best thing you find about drawing? Do you find it relaxing, or what else?
Yeah, well, as I was talking to you earlier about, I'm undiagnosed, but I genuinely believe I've got ADHD. And as you know yourself, the mind is chaotic. The mind is chaotic. Now, if my mind is not contained, it goes off. And now fundraising is amazing, because it gives me an avenue for that. Then my mind, where it shoots off, oh, I can channel it and reach for things and do things and whatnot. But if I'm not doing that, and I'm not thinking about work, and I'm not thinking about things at home, then what do I do? So art is a brilliant way for me to sit and just channel and focus on something. And I'm not a great artist. You know, there's many, many amazing artists out there, but I am an artist, you know, and that since January this year, you know, to get over my inner mental health issues, I've started taking it a bit more seriously, set up a Facebook page, and I've just started doing it a bit more serious. And the majority of my art I give away, you know, I genuinely give it away, because as I said to you earlier, I'm not rich, but I've got everything I need. You know, it's a few extra quid to, you know, buy a few nice things, but I tend to either buy new art stuff or give it away for charity. I mean, I did a fundraiser in July, had no prizes, so I gave away a load of my artwork. You know,
I've noticed that you've spoke quite a bit with my younger brother, because he's an artist
he's
as well.
superb artist.
It's mad, you know. I can just about draw stickmen, but that boy can rock up to anything he puts his
but I
hands
can't
to.
rap.
Well, this is it. Everyone's got their own unique qualities, haven't they?
Yeah.
I guess so.
No, I can rap. I just don't show you.
Yeah, we all know you can rap. We all know you can. So, you've always created these fantastic pieces for a number of celebrities. Give us an insight into just who you've drawn them for, and what has been your most memorable moment when you've handed these art to people. Because I know you've rocked up to like an evening with some amazing boxers, some amazing film actors, and what can you think of a real strong memorable moment that you were able to hand over?
The most sort of special occasion was a few years ago. Some people may remember a boxer by the name of Michael Watson. He was involved in a fight with Chris Eubank back in the 90s, and Michael suffered brain hemorrhage and was left heavily disabled. Absolute legend of a man. Now, being a massive boxing fan, I knew who Michael was and whatnot. And over the years, through my fundraising, I've made friends with another wonderful chap by the name of Andrew Brace down in London. He owns a memorabilia shop. called Worldwide Signings. I'll get that name in there.
Andrew Brace, man. Yeah, I need to head to that shop.
I'll take it.
I've bought a few stuff online of his.
Yeah.
Some few signed pieces and stuff. But he seems a lovely guy. He is. He does the signings in store.
Yeah,
doesn't
he does. Yeah, he's had George Foreman, Roberto Duran. He's had the load. But he is a genuine diamond.
And his daughter gets to meet them all as well.
I know, Scarlett.
She must be in her element. Yeah. You know, what a cool kid.
Yeah, she is. And she, she's fighting herself now.
Fantastic.
Basically, through Andy, sadly Michael was carjacked with his carer, and it would have been about 7 or 8 years ago now, in London, and it really, really, as you can imagine, knocked Michael for six. Him and his carer were carjacked in London, and I found out about it on the news and contacted Andy, who I know is a good friend of Michael's, and I said, can I do anything? And he says, well, you could send him a card if you want, and I'll send it to him. So I got all my students from school to draw him pictures and colour in and whatever, and we sent it to Michael, and Andy sent us a video saying thank you. And, well, me as a I don't think the kids were bothered. They were like, oh yeah, that's cool. Whereas me, I was like, Michael Watson just said thanks. But anyway, after Michael had recovered, Andy had a meet and greet at his shop in Romford, in London. So I drove down, and it was Michael Watson and Nigel Benn. Now, I'd always been petrified of Nigel Benn, but loved him. So I drove down, and I'd drawn a picture of Michael Watson. And I was thinking, do I get it signed? I thought, nah. Anyway, I was queuing up for the meet and greet, and Andy come over and said, Lee, I've got a birthday present for you. It's the day before my birthday. And he said, follow me. So he took me upstairs, and there was a private meeting with Michael Watson. Just me and Michael. And it was unreal. And I presented him with this drawing. And, oh man, what a man. What a man. So I'll always be like really, really in debt to Andy for that. And then, presented him with the drawing, and kind of spurred something on. And then straight after that, I got kissed by Nigel Benn.
There you go. True story. There ain't many men that can say they've been kissed by Mr. Benn himself. I got kissed by Nigel Benn. Yeah.
Fantastic. Yeah, the other one was the Mountain, Thor. At Comic-Con Telford in June. I took a drawing. I presented him with a copy of it, which he was over the moon with. It's probably in the bin, but he signed my copy, so I've got a signed copy of a drawing of Thor for sale. If you want it, anyone, 10 grand.
10 grand, bargain. He might even give you a kiss on top of that as well. But if you're lucky. Something I've got to ask you, because you've dropped a few names there, and I am massively into my boxing. I love watching boxing and reading all about it and whatnot. I noticed that you rub shoulders quite regularly with the local Telford legend, Mr. Richie Woodall himself.
Oh, don't. Honestly,
What's he like as a person?
I'm such a fanboy, I am.
What's he like as a person?
Well, again...
It's real raw and uncut.
A random meet-up. I've obviously lived in Telford since 96. Never got to see him fight live. But I remember, right, this is going to drop my dad in it. My dad had a dodgy skybox when I was a kid. And I tried to tune in for the Calzaghe Woodall fight.
Telford Ice Rink.
And all we could get was the audio.
Right, okay.
So I was sat near the TV listening to him. And anyway, I was at another great guy. But I was over at Cannock at the Premier Suite. And Scott Murray's place. And he has all these meet and greets. Not meet and greets. They're like a dinner. Like an after dinner thing.
Yeah.
And it was Tyson Fury, and it was just after his comeback, so it was before the Wilder fights, and Tyson Fury was there. So this was my first ever thing at the Premier Suite, and I was like, I wonder if you're allowed to get anything signed. And I thought, well, you know what, I'll take a couple of gloves. Anyway, parked up, and as I got out the car, Richie pulled up next to me. So as a typical fanboy, Richie, hi, can you sign this, please? And he says, yeah, I'll sign that for you, mate, no problem. And he says, Tyson won't sign that one, though. And I went, won't he? And he goes, no, not a chance. I said, okay, never mind. He said, you can ask him, though. Anyway, me and Richie walked up to the Premier Suite, and we were just literally chatting about Telford, because he asked me where I was from. And I said I'd seen his charity work in the paper, and I did a lot of charity work and whatnot. And I thought that was it. And then about 20 minutes later, Richie come and found me and said, really interested in your charity work. I was like, oh, cool, okay. And later on in the evening, I managed to get down to the front of the table, and Tyson Fury was there. And I got my glove in my hand, I was shaking. I was like, oh, God, what am I going to do here? Richie saw what I was going to do. So Richie interrupted and went, Tyson, this is my friend Lee. He's very, very big on his charity work. Oh, he does all this, he does all that. I'm like, I'm loving this. He says, you wouldn't mind signing his glove for him, would you? So, yeah, Tyson Fury signed the glove. Yeah.
Nice.
So, anyway, that night, I got back and went on Twitter. Oh, I met the amazing Richie Woodall tonight. Oh, my God, you know. And Richie messaged me privately and said, lovely meeting you, Lee. It'd be good if we could catch up about the charity work. This is the best bit. Here's my number.
Wow.
Yeah. And
that's like, another level, that.
Well, you know what? It was, when you're running these circles at. So, yeah, like, as I said, I'm like a massive fanboy. So I was buzzing. So me and Richie have been in touch ever since. And we've how it tends to work is because Richie is one of those, you asked what he's like. Richie is one of those guys who, humble is not a big enough word for him. He is just the guy deserves an MBE, a knighthood, a golden plaque, anything that could be given to him, because he doesn't ask for it. He doesn't ask for anything. Doesn't ask for anything in return. He just wants to help people. Obviously, his old man, who was a boxing trainer, he passed away, and I think Richie, ever since then, well, he did before. I know he did before, but since then, he's really, really wanted to help. excuse me, with cancer charities, and he'll do whatever he can. But he's just the most humble man on the planet. He will talk to you about his fights. He'll talk to you about his charity. He'll talk to you about anything, and he will do absolutely anything he can to help. But yeah, when you talk to Richie about the work that he's done, it's he doesn't see it as a big deal. When you talk to him about his charity work, he doesn't see it as a big deal. He just wants to help. That
must have been a crazy experience, meeting Richie.
He is. He deserves the world. I mean, obviously people know him a lot better than I do, but I can tell you, talk from personal experience. The guy's a genuine, a diamond. I can message him, and regardless of how busy his schedule is, he come round the other day and sat there and signed a load of stuff for me. He doesn't want anything in return. He will message me occasionally and say, I've got this. And it's like, wow, you sure you want to give that away? You sure you don't want to give it me? He knows I'm a massive Joe Calzaghe fan. Oh, man. And he turned up the one day with some sparring pads signed by Joe Calzaghe. And he's like, do you want to raffle these off? And I went, no.
No, I want to keep them for myself.
I want to keep them. But yeah, he's one of life's. I don't think we appreciate him enough. Genuinely, I think we should have a Rocky-style statue of him in the town park, because you know what, we've got some amazing sportsmen in this town. We've got some amazing people in this town, but I think any sportsman that comes up, I mean, look at the incredible Liam Davis coming up. Anything that comes off that. Richie was started it, and I think what he's the seed he's planted, and the work let's face it, and the work he does, he deserves it for the charity work he does. Stuff that nobody ever hears about. The majority of stuff that Richie Woodall does
goes unnoticed.
People will not know about it because
true.
He doesn't want anything for it.
Yeah.
To my knowledge.
And that's the difference, isn't it? That's the difference between people that want the flowers and people that don't, And it's massively important to see these figures doing these things. But like you said, there's probably so much that people don't even know about that he does, No.
And that goes for a lot of people. I mean, Richie's in a very in the scheme of like getting the memorabilia, he's obviously in a very fortunate position, and he can get those things. But there's a lot of people unrecognised in this wonderful town. I love Telford.
Yeah,
I love Telford.
There's a lot of talent in Telford. There's a lot of talent in their own rights with different things. They don't necessarily have to play anything. They don't have to be music or anything. But there is so much that people can offer in Telford that I think, unfortunately, without going into too much detail, unfortunately, Telford has been tarnished through the media with a lot of bad things that have happened. But there's also a lot of good in this town.
Well, that's it. It's time to. I was, we grew up with it, didn't we? We grew up with it. We know the people involved, and we could sit and talk about that for hours. But we need to celebrate the good things in this place. We could sit here for the rest of our lives and talk about the bad things that have gone on in Telford, and I fully get that. And sadly, the people who went through this will live with it for the rest of their lives. I work in that industry. I do. I work in that industry, so I know the effects. Trust me, I know the effects, and I was shocked to see that, shocked but comforted at the same time, that they've actually got specialist CSE members of staff in mainstream schools these days. Actually, dedicated staff members. Well, as I put it, because I work with victims of CSE, and it's a shame my job has to exist. That's how I'm going to put it.
Yeah.
It's a shame that my job has to exist, but that's all I'm going to say in it, because it makes me very, very angry.
Yeah. So, with you being such a big boxing fan, you ever had to go boxing yourself?
No.
And would Liam Davis run in the opposite direction?
Of course he would.
Tyson
Fury ran in the opposite. No, he didn't. Tyson's bloody massive. Liam's massive,
Yeah.
Seriously, right? First time, I've spoke to Liam loads of times, but the first time I met him, I was like, Jesus, he's a big lad. He is.
Yeah,
he's a big lad.
He's a big lad for the weight. He's got to go up soon. He can't stay at.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I think
forever,
he'll go up. But whatever he does, you know what? Even if he retired now, he's bloody done.
I did see
done more than. I've seen a lot of the usual armchair crap on Facebook.
Yeah, I've seen it all.
But you know what? That lad. He's done more than 99% of people will do, and he's a quality bloke.
He is a very nice humble lad as well.
And his dad as well.
Yeah, Tristan as well. Yeah, he's done wonders for that boy. They're a very strong team, and it's lovely to see the kind of father and son working together. And all in memory of his granddad too.
Yeah,
which is amazing. I often think of Liam as the rose that grew from concrete.
Nice.
You like that? I like that. Do you like that one?
Nice, yeah.
Well, I'm a big Tupac fan, so I'm not going to say I've made.
That's
that
what got
myself.
me to rap, was Tupac.
There you go. So I often see Liam as the rose that grew from concrete. He grew up on a council estate, a lot like myself and many other people, and
I still live on one.
Yeah, and he's trying to fulfill his a dream, and that's amazing. And I'm also going to mention, because a lot of people are quick to mention Liam and they forget about his brother Bradley.
Yeah, man.
Bradley's predicted big things. He's a good lad, and he's a good fighter.
Very, very.
He's on
good.
that same card as Liam only the other day, and. Yes, it was live on YouTube as opposed to the pay-per-view, but his time's coming with Bradley.
And I think this is it. I think this is what people need to see, because I think this is half of the issue with. I'm going to sound proper old now, but youth today is that they're in such a rush to get from here, ground zero to fame, and people need to see. The trouble is that these armchairs, they won't see the days of Liam being an amateur, travelling up and down the country, in fact travelling all over Europe, fighting as an amateur, seeing what he did. They don't see that. They just see the same with Ben Whittaker. Now, I've met Ben on numerous occasions. His dad is a lovely man, and Ben Whittaker, I won't talk about what happened in the ring because I don't know what's gone on, but that lad I have followed for years, and the work that lad has put in, right, is unbelievable. Unbelievable. And you asked me if I've ever boxed. The best I got to was like an orange belt kickboxing. I've got no discipline. That's why I'm sat here with a massive gut hanging over my jeans. I've got no discipline. I love the fight game. I think I'm a big advocate for it in schools, because it teaches respect.
Absolutely.
It teaches discipline. But I haven't got that discipline, and that's why I look up to these guys, and I go, and I will never, slag off anybody on Facebook, or even definitely not going to do it to their face. But the fact of the matter is, they don't see the work that these guys put in. They don't see the 4 o'clock get-ups to go for a run, to get down the gym or whatever. That goes for any sport, It's just real hard work, and
definitely.
I'm afraid of that hard work. That's why but truthfully, I've never done it because it's not. I know that I wouldn't be able to put the commitment in.
What are you talking about anyway, Lee? Dad bods are the way forward, mate.
Yeah.
Team dad bods,
Yeah.
all the way. I'm rocking one, you're rocking one. We're all good, mate. We're all good.
Yeah,
we're all good. So, I'm going to get a little serious now. Now, I am cautious of time, obviously. But I'm going to get a little serious on this. Now, I've been a mental health advocate for probably, I'm going to say officially a couple of years now. Editor in The Scene magazine, which is distributed all over the Midlands. And I try to put my story out there as much as possible with the view of other men relating. And I've had results back, I've had anonymous people come back to me and say, you know what, I went through that same thing and at that time, and even now I always thought that it was only me that went through that, but it's so good to see that there's someone putting themselves in the spotlight. Now, I know that you've had dealings with your own mental health, and you can choose to go into this as deep or as vivid as you'd like, but when did you first start realising that you were suffering with mental health, and was there any significant moment that triggered that?
Well, I think I've always struggled with it, especially as a kid. But you didn't put it down to mental health back then. Being bullied used to put me in a very, 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 very dark place as a kid, and my big thing was to hide, and that's what I did. But more recently, in the last. What year are we on now? 2024, isn't it? Yeah, man. In the last 3 years, my nan was my second mom, and I lost my nan, and very, very suddenly, and that's when I started to go downhill, shall we say? And a year after losing my nan, I then lost my mom. And that then...
So two very, very important people in your life.
Yeah. And I've lost people in the past, but I've got to admit that this, it knocked me for 6. The world was put on hold for me. I mean, my charity work was put on hold. Community work all stopped. Luckily, my boss at the time, Andy Huxley, bless him, just passed away. But he was a very, very supportive man, and helped me in the professional side of things. But it got dark. And it took a while for me to realise that it was loss. And it was one of the... I've always suffered with this grey cloud. And I've always walked into I told you about walking into a room and making it a better place. I've always been the class clown, always, which then turned into being the pub clown, and I would always try to mask what was going on in my own head by making the world around me laugh, and this loss made me or stop that from happening. I could no longer be the clown. I couldn't even I couldn't even pretend any longer. And I think that was the key element for me. I've always been able to channel my mind into doing other things, the fundraising, the artwork, focusing on my work and whatnot. But this loss, or these losses, had completely battered me into submission, where I could no longer mask anything. And what was happening is I was just going deeper and deeper into a hole. And I'm very, very fortunate in the way of I have a wife who is not just understanding, but she's been a saint. That's the only. I'm not going to go too deep into that with my wife, because she knows very, very well what she's done for me. And you know, it's and other people in my life. You know, there's been others, and I've messaged those guys independently and said, you know what, that check-in, although I didn't appreciate it at the time, and I don't mean that I didn't appreciate it, but I didn't possibly respond at the time, but those check-ins can make all the difference. And I think the problem is, you know, mine was loss. That's what tipped me over the edge. But it could be a loss of a job, it could be a fallout, it could be a breakup, it could be whatever. But when you're in that pit where you genuinely don't see the point, and that was the point, that was the turning point for me. I've always been optimistic. I've always been able to see a way out. I've always been able to see a positive outcome, you know, and whether that means, you know, looking to help somebody else. If I help somebody else, that'll help me. But nah. This was November 2022. So it's 2 years this month. It's next week. 2 years since I lost my mum, and I lost my mum through the demon, which is alcohol. My mum was a wonderful, wonderful lady, but she had her demons, you know. And in the last few years of her life, bless her, she succumbed to it, you know. And watching her go the way she did was horrendous. It was one of the most painful things I've ever had to witness. But where I was going could have led on that path as well, because the way that I was coping at the time was to go, I'm fine. I knew it was coming. I know it's fine, because I knew it was coming. I'm fine. I wasn't. And what was happening was I was drinking. I've always liked to drink, but I was drinking heavy whiskey, and what I was doing was doing it to cope. Now, I know that's a cliche because everyone says they do it to cope, but it was just allowing me, I knew the dangers of it, you know, obviously firsthand, but I didn't care. I just wanted to try and numb the feelings at the time, because I couldn't see a way out. Now, when I was growing up, antidepressants were taboo. They were, you know, you only went on them if you were seriously ill, and I didn't want any part of that. And I've worked with children with serious mental health issues for 15 years. I know the score. I know how the brain works. I'm a science teacher. I'm fascinated by the brain, believe it or not, and I understand that it's chemical imbalances, and I understand how trauma works, and I couldn't be taught any more about that. I knew everything about how it works and why I was feeling like this, but it did not help with where I was going. And it took for me to pretty much implode. I had a very, very, very traumatic day at work, which I can't go into. Very, very traumatic. In the February after I lost my mom, and that weekend I had a nightmare, and it was one of the worst things I've ever felt, like this nightmare. And I woke up the next day, and I said to my wife, okay, I'll go and get some help. And I was petrified. I was petrified of what that help meant. I didn't know how people would look at me. I didn't know how people would allow me to work with children with mental health issues if they knew that I'd got mental health. All these things went through my head, because you're in that pit and you've got that cloud over you that doesn't allow you to see rationality. It doesn't allow you to think rationally in the way of, I was emotional. I've always been an emotional person, always have been, but this was different, man. I was just breaking down at the slightest thing. The slightest thing that somebody said to me, I would take very, very personally. Very, very personally. You know, if me and the wife had a fallout, I would take everything that was said very, very personally that wasn't personal, which would then cause issues, you know, and then things would snowball. You know, I hated myself, and you know, I really appreciate the words you were saying about me then, but those words mean nothing, and I don't mean that horribly, but those words mean absolutely nothing at that time because I hated myself, because I'd allowed myself to get to this situation, and I'm also sitting there thinking, well, she's gone. That's the way I'm going to go. What's the point? What's the point in any of this? So then you get in the bit which I want to be very open with, and I made this very, very clear at the time that when I get better, I want to be open, because I wasn't suicidal in the way of I want to kill myself, but I wanted it to end. And what I mean by that is, and the way I'm going to explain it is I kind of wish Thanos existed. I wish that somebody could flick a switch and it be gone. Right? I didn't want to do it to myself. I didn't want to commit suicide. It's not like that, and I'm not going to put myself out there like other people maybe, because that would be an insult to them. I wasn't like that. I've got a lot to live. I've got everything a man could want. As I said, I'm not rich, but I've got a good job, a nice house, a lovely wife, friends, family, the lot, right? There's people a lot worse off. It sounds really awful, but I've just lost my mom, right? So that's where the other guilt come in. What the bloody hell am I moaning about? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
What the bloody hell am I moaning about? And then you realise why people like Robbie Williams suffer. What the bloody hell's he got to worry about? Yeah. You know, it's not worry. It's something else. So anyway, I made the decision that I was going to get some help, and this is thanks to, as I said, my wife, my sister. My sister, bless her, was going through the same as me, but she was a rock. You know, my old man, bless him, was going through hell. You know, my brothers were going through hell, but they were there. My friends were there. You know. But I rang the doctors the next day, and the doctor laughed, believe it or not, because I told him what I did for a living, and I told him what was going on with my brain before he could. And he went, well, Mr. Ellis, normally I would say that this is what's wrong, but you seem to know.
To it.
Yeah.
You've done my job for me.
And I said to him, look, I need something to, you know, get this chemical imbalance right. And he says, brilliant. He said, that's good because you know what you need it for. So he prescribed me with sertraline, and I think I was on the lowest dose you could get, 50 milligrams a day or something. And I took this tablet once a day, and it was the best thing that ever happened to me in that respect, because what it did very, very quickly was, and this was thanks to, by the way, my friends opening up. Honestly, if they hadn't have opened up about them being on these tablets, I don't think I'd have ever asked for help. Yeah. And this is why it's really important to be open about things like this, because there is no stigma. Do it for the right reasons. And that's what I did. I took these tablets. I was on them for 12 months. The doctor said I'd probably need them for longer, but I knew when I knew. And I took them for 12 months. And what they did is they allowed me to see clearly. They didn't make you numb. You don't feel like you're on them. But what that bit that when you would break, the bit where you would cry, the bit where you'd reach for the bottle, the bit where you would collapse. This tablet would just stop that. And you go, hang on a minute.
Gives you a bit more of a rational way of thinking,
I guess.
Yeah,
and that's what I needed, because I was so emotional. I needed to stop being emotional for the time being and fix myself. And that's why I took the tablets, so that I could get to a point where I could fix myself. So what I did is I spent the year coming to terms with the death of my mom, my nan, and just understanding myself a little bit more. Taking my time. It wasn't easy, and I put my wife through hell. You know, I'm not going to lie. I put my wife through hell. But it wasn't easy, and I'm not going to sit here and go, yeah, take the tablet, it's all fine, because it's not.
No.
You have to take it for the right reasons.
And you've got to want to help yourself.
You've got to help. This tablet does not help you.
No.
This tablet does not help you. This tablet helped me to be clear so that I could find a way to help myself. So what I was able to do, curb the booze. I still drink, but I'm now all right.
Yeah.
One day I may go teetotal, but I like a drink, right? And I'm one of the lucky ones where I'm able to control that. I understand there's people out there that can't do that, but I like a drink, so I still do have a drink probably once every fortnight, if that. But what I did at the time is I stopped drinking, and that was such a massive, massive difference. Honestly.
And I guess, like, I suppose now you're drinking for different reasons.
That is exactly why. That's exactly why. So what I was able to do was I was able to stop drinking because I identified that it was the tiredness that was killing me, believe it or not, not the alcohol. I don't sleep properly when I drink. Nobody does. They think they do, but you're passed out. That's not a proper sleep. So I was waking up the next day, battered. When I'm tired, that's when the brain starts going mental. And that's when I was at my lowest, when I was tired. And what I did is I stopped that. Wake up fresh. That's a massive start to your day. Wake up fresh. Massive start to the day. Feeling better. Feeling a little bit more energetic. I'm not saying I didn't have my low days, because I really did. But they weren't as low as what they were. And then what I was able to do then was start to invest in myself. I started to look into my artwork. Bought myself a new desk, bought myself some new equipment, did all that. And then I invested in a personal trainer, Julian, and told him straight while I was there, I'm not here to be a bodybuilder, I'm not here to be world's strongest man, I'm here. I didn't even diet. I know it sounds daft, all that hard work I'm doing at the gym, I didn't even diet. So you probably didn't even notice, but up here, in my mind, I was feeling a million times better, and that's what I was going for. So now, by April, so 12 months later, I'd managed to wean myself off the tablets after, I think it was 2 weeks. And that was a great feeling, because I knew then that I could do it. I came off the tablets, and then started, as I said, to find new strategies to cope. And I'd say the last 6 weeks have been a huge turning point. The last 6 weeks, I've started to see differently, feel differently. I'm feeling a million times better. It's my mum's anniversary next week of her passing, and I'm positive. I'm positive about Christmas coming up, and this is why I talk about this, because it's really important for people to understand that it is, I know it's a cliche, it's okay to not be okay, all those cliches out there, but it is true. It's all right. It's all right.
I think I've said this on a previous podcast that when I got an interview, and we're very lucky to grow up in a generation where mental health in men has never been so important.
Yeah.
20, 30, 40 years ago, it wasn't even a thing. You were told to man up, and I hate that word. You're told to man up,
and the problem is, right, is that the generation that grew up then will say, well, it wasn't around. It was around.
Of course it was.
You didn't hear about the suicides. You didn't, you had mental institutions.
Absolutely.
Institutions where people were put, right, for the same reasons as what I was suffering with. Yeah. I'd have been locked up for being sad. That's not.
It's horrendous.
But this is what I'm saying, is that the generation from back then will go, this didn't exist. It bloody did.
Yeah.
You just didn't see it.
Absolutely. And that's the
same. You were locked up.
That's the same with many conditions, like the ADHD and things like that. They were just a naughty, troublesome child.
Yeah.
No, there was a reason why they were doing this. Yeah. You know what I mean? I was told, I've recently been diagnosed with autism. With ADHD, and at school, I was always told, well, he can never sit still.
Yeah.
He's always getting out of his chair. Yeah. He's the classroom joker. But because these things just weren't really at the forefront of people, you know what I mean? And it's all about, with mental health and dealing with mental health, it's all about breaking that cycle.
Yeah.
And even just taking yourself, and this, like, again, forgive me for the listeners that think this is cliche, but it's, if you take yourself out for a walk, it can make all the difference.
Unbelievable.
It really helped me. And even the other day, like, I've come a long way in my mental health. Like, I suffered depression at the time of lockdown, where so many people were suffering with depression with lockdown, because it was just a whole new way of dealing with everything. But it it gave me more time because I wasn't out performing at clubs and festivals and raves. I was sat there in my own thoughts. I hadn't touched the hip hop to start off with, so I didn't have that release of my emotions. I just had me and my thoughts, and that's where mine took a dip in lockdown. And mine was like, because my father put me through a lot of stuff growing up, and I had a lot of childhood trauma, which I didn't know at the time. I was more conscious on, am I being a good dad? Am I being a good dad? Why are you out here writing lyrics for a festival and stuff when you could be spending time with your kids inside?
Yeah.
What a horrendous dad you are, and beating myself up in my mind. And it wasn't until I completely slumped and was going down the depression route. I mean, I must say, like yourself, there was not one time where I was suicidal. I was fine with all that, you know. I wasn't suicidal, and that's fine for people to be that, but from my own personal experience, I wasn't suicidal, but I definitely was suffering with severe depression. It wasn't until I had because you do the initial, I mean, I'm not sure how much counselling you've addressed, but with the counselling with me, they did like an initial score sheet, and it came back that I was...
No, I didn't go down the counselling
route. Right. So I didn't go down the medication route. I went down the counselling route.
Yeah.
Whatever works for you, isn't it? Each to their own.
Yeah.
But my score sheet initially came back with severe depression, and then the aim was that after the counselling, they would then score you again, and hopefully the scores would be better.
Yeah.
For me, they were. So I was awarded like 13 sessions of childhood trauma counselling, and that did me wonders.
Yeah.
Because all the stuff that I thought was completely normal as a child was far from normal, and it only took me to when I was in adolescence to realise, actually, them things that was happening around me as a child that I thought was completely normal that my father was putting me through, no, they're not normal things that should be happening. But to me, that was all I knew. It was completely normal to me. And yeah, so going on from that, just to cut it short, I kind of came out of depression again. My wife was my rock.
Yeah.
She was. I always say this: behind every good man is a good lady, and in most scenarios. And Beck was just amazing with me. She literally picked me up off the floor. She had stuff going on herself as well.
I think that's the thing we need to emphasise, is that my wife had lost her mother-in-law. She was going through things.
Yeah.
And
it's crazy.
It is. It's very. It is. It's very difficult.
And she had stuff going on herself, and yet she was still there for me as much as I needed her when she could have quite easily fell apart herself.
Yeah.
And that was probably, like yourself, that was making me feel even worse, because I was just thinking, why are you feeling like this?
100%, yeah.
Why are you feeling like... Then I was thinking, well, my friend's just been diagnosed with cancer. Why are you feeling like this? You're healthy.
Yeah.
You're healthy. Why are you feel? There's people far worse than this. And yeah, so I come. The long and short of it is, after the 13 bouts of intense counselling, it was only through video call, but it was intense. They basically pulled every demon out of my closet, lay them all on a table, and I was then able to, because my head was just a mess. I didn't know what to feel. I kept feeling anger at why he put me through what he had. Then I felt anger at I couldn't control the things that I was seeing as a kid. Why didn't I step up and stop these things happening? I was a child, Lee. I was a child. There was no way I could do stuff like that. But the counselling helped me to realise what I was in control of at that time and what I wasn't in control of. And that really helped me. But yeah, long and short of it is, I came out the other side. I made a vow to myself that I would try to help as many people. I'm no professional with this mental health, but I've got life experiences.
As I said in the interview you did with me in the Scene magazine, I don't believe that there is a mental health expert. I genuinely don't believe in it, because everybody's is different, and you can't be an expert of everybody.
No,
you have to be out there, and you have to just say your piece and what worked for you.
That's it.
And my big thing I would say to anybody out there is be patient with yourself. And that's it. We've both commented there that we hated ourselves, and we hated and felt guilty and whatever. It's easy for us to say. Well, it's not easy for us to say, but you know what, we've been there. Don't feel guilty.
Yeah.
Get yourself out there. Find someone to talk to.
100%.
Be patient with yourself. And lastly for me is invest in yourself.
Invest, 100%.
You have to invest in yourself. I've spent so many years trying to help other people. And when I needed it most, it was my wife that said, stop. You know, and when that happened, I was broken, because I thought, well, if I'm not helping other people, who am I? I'm nobody. I'm a nobody without. I think that's probably the selfish side of my charity work, is that I do it because I want to be somebody and remembered to be a certain somebody. And if I haven't got that, then who am I? Am I even somebody?
I found that my battery, the way the counsellor put it to me, and it was a really interesting way. He said, look, do you want to be the best possible dad for your kids? I said, of course I do. They said, well, when your battery is empty, you're not going to be the best possible dad, because your battery is empty. You're not going to be the best possible husband. I was just existing, Lee. I was just existing. I wasn't even living. I was just existing. I was no use as a dad. I was just staring into thin air. No use as a husband. Everything that my wife needed from me, I could not give her at that time while I was suffering. But yeah, I've come a long way. But anyway, that's kind of a brief overview of mine. But what I'm trying to tell the listeners, and as you said, it's okay not to be okay. Invest in yourself. If these listeners take anything away from these Dribbz Talks podcasts, that's the main kind of thing is, and you are still going to have days where this mental health is going to creep up, but it's going to be a different form of it, because you've addressed and dealt with your worst parts, and it's okay to take a dip.
A few hours of struggling is not a few days or weeks or months of struggling.
And it can make such a difference. Like I was dipping maybe only 2 weeks ago, started feeling really sad, really low, thought it was just an odd day. Next day same thing, next day same thing. Then I had a week of it, and I thought, I was scared that I was falling into depression again. I was really scared about it. Luckily I wasn't. It was just a few days, like a week of it. But I didn't want to see anyone. I'm a very outgoing person. I'm more than happy to talk to people, to help people. I didn't want to speak to anyone. I was dodging small talk. Anyone that was messaging me, I was ignoring them, because I didn't have anything in me to even speak to anyone, which definitely isn't me. And a friend of mine said, do you fancy having a walk up? I did message him and I said, look, I'm struggling a bit here today. And the next day he said, do you fancy having a walk up the Wrekin? I didn't want to go up the Wrekin, because if I went up the Wrekin, that meant I would have had to, by the way, for the people that don't know, the Wrekin is a local landmark that's in Telford. Great, anyway. But
knackering.
It's very tiring. But yeah, so I didn't want to go up the Wrekin, because that meant that if I was walking up the Wrekin with him, then small talk would have to be supplied, and I weren't ready for that.
Yeah.
So I said no. What did that lad do? A friend of mine do. Turned up at my house anyway. That was great. That was the best thing he could have done. When I seen him, I opened the door, not expecting, and there he is on the doorstep, and he's like, you ready, bro? And I'm like, I did text you saying I'm not coming, and he was like, nah, I didn't get it. I reckon he did get it. He definitely did get it, but he thought I'm going to come anyway. And he dragged me out, and oh my God, Lee, I felt so, it was only an hour and a half walk. I felt so much like regenerated when I got back.
Yeah.
Just go for a
walk. On them good days, recharge, as you said about the battery. Recharge on them good days. So I'll tell you what, they will fuel the bad days and get you through them, so that you get back to the good.
100%. So we spoke about being, the best possible version of yourself with regards to, taking time for yourself, recharging. We're going to move on from the mental health, because that could be a complete separate podcast as it is, and maybe in the future we'll touch on that again, and we'll have you down again, Lee, because it's been a pleasure so far. With regards to Telford, is there you've mentioned Richie Woodall, you've mentioned Liam Davis that are doing positive things within Telford. Is there anyone else you can think of that's doing great things in our local town?
Oh, there's so many.
There's so many. Right? Is there anyone that's?
I've got to give a big shout out to Mickey Bushell. Paralympian.
That's right. I had the pleasure of interviewing Mickey for a Scene magazine.
He's ugly, isn't he?
I didn't see him face to face.
Oh, didn't you? Oh,
no, I didn't.
Terribly ugly. Yeah.
He'll love you for that.
No, Mickey, man, he's one of us. He's a really good lad. And obviously gold medals, world records. I mean, Christ. But he's he runs his own wheelchair academy.
He was telling me
which has been a huge help for my wife, who's wheelchair bound, and for building confidence.
So your wife has accessed that he.
Yeah. So she's done the 8-week program, and she's been now training with him for way over a year as a
Amazing.
personal trainer.
Amazing.
And yeah, he does wonderful things for people in wheelchairs. Look him up, Mickey Bushell's Gold Standard Academy. If you're in a wheelchair, he will help you. He will find a way to help you. He is, he's got a gold medal.
He's got a gold medal,
Yeah.
and he's got a gold post box.
Yeah,
Come on.
Yeah.
Does anyone need anything else?
Yeah.
Get a post
So-
box in your life.
Yeah, there's loads of people out there, mate. I mean, you look at Dulcie, little Dulcie. Look at her mom, the amount of fundraising she's doing.
Yeah.
There's stacks of wonderful people in Telford.
There is. Telford's full of them.
And we've just got to trust in people. That's the thing. Trust in them.
Yeah.
We've got to. It's easy to tar people with a brush.
100%.
But we've got to trust in people. We've got to trust in people and be nice. I mean, that's going to be my parting thing. I think is I'm just going to say, just be nice, but give people a chance because, look at very quickly get onto this like Liam. He's probably just had the weekend of hell. He got beat. Absolutely sound display from Shabazz Masood. Absolutely brilliant.
You couldn't knock it, could you?
No,
You couldn't
absolutely
knock it.
brilliant display from him, and he trains down at Wellington Amateurs. Yeah.
And he was the underdog. Let's face it.
Yeah, Wellington Amateurs. Yeah, I heard about him years ago from Mo Fiaz. Actually, told me about him when Richie invited me down to the gym, and he
I
told
think
me
he's Mo's star boy, isn't he?
Yeah, he told me years ago about
Did he?
him. So I looked him up, and I thought even then
Because he came up in the amateurs with Liam.
Yeah,
didn't he?
yeah. But Liam's just had an absolutely horrible weekend, bless him. He'll be back. He's a professional. He'll be back. You don't get to where he is by stopping. He will be back, and he is quality. But just give him a break.
Yeah.
Give him a break. People like him don't need to hear your opinions of his fight
It's
or
disgusting.
what he did wrong in your opinion. By all means, sit in your lounge and talk to your mates about it.
I've stopped going on these forums
You don't
now.
need to post on Facebook about Liam, whatever. You don't need to hear it.
Yeah, I've
Just
stopped
be-
going
just
on
be
these
nice.
forums now because they're just ridiculous. You
Yeah,
know, you
yeah.
look at like little snippets that he's done on the boxing, YouTube channels and stuff, and the comments are just vile.
Yeah.
They're vile, and you
Yeah.
think, could you do a better job? Nah, of course you couldn't.
No.
And it's crazy, but yeah, as we said, once again, shouts to Liam. I've actually got the Liam Davis hoodie on
I've
now,
noticed,
so
yeah.
repping
Well,
it. But,
I haven't had one of them, Liam.
well, I didn't get one. I had to pay good money for
Did
this
you?
one. I did indeed, yeah. But I made sure it was personal, so I got the Dribbz
Oh, nice.
advertised at the same time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know what Liam would think of that, but anyway, double
He'll love it.
personalised.
He'll
But
love
yeah,
it, yeah.
so I wear that round to my local area of Donington. I feel quite proud to wear that, and leading up to the fight, I must say I got a bit of abuse in the small town of Wellington for wearing it.
Yeah. But
know?
again, massive shout out to Shabazz at the end of the fight. He
Yes.
said enough
Now, with this
enough
stops
now.
here. Yeah.
We're brothers.
I like that.
We're going out for a meal together in the week. That's what we need to hear. That's what we need to
100%.
focus on. And I'm not going to sit here and say that one side's right and one side's wrong. That's not my place. It's just that let's just remember to be kind where we can. You know what I mean? They're both professionals. They both put literally their lives on the line in that ring, and they deserve the utmost respect, both of them.
100%. So I've got 3 or 4 more questions and topics to talk about, but I think I'm going to leave it there because
my wife will go mental now.
she'll be kicking my ass, won't she? But
Yeah.
I'm going to leave it with what Lee's just said there. Be kind where you can. If there's any chance that you can show kindness to
And
someone,
if you can't, walk away.
Yeah, I think that's quite a very, very important thing to say. So, once again, guys, thank you so much for locking in. To everyone that stuck with me with this, who have followed me from the music to the podcasts, you guys are true supporters, and I generally, I really appreciate it from the bottom of my heart. So this has been Dribbz Talks, episode 2. With Lee Ellis, covering so many different topics. It's real, raw and uncut. Like I said, there's no polishing, there's no editing that's going to be done afterwards. We hit record, we have a chat, and we take it from there. So don't forget to like, share and subscribe, because that really does make all the difference. I want to get these podcasts growing more and more, and then we can bring on so many different guests. I'm not boxing it off to just music, hence why I've called it Dribbz Talks, so we can cover so much stuff. And believe me, I've got some very, very exciting guests for the future.
People better than me, trust me. They've got more talent, at least. You know
Thank you so much, Lee. Truly appreciate it.
No, thanks for having me.
Big ups, Lee.
Thank you. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Dribbz Talks Podcast. We're bringing it to you real, raw and uncut. A safe place where we can talk about anything and everything. So like, share and subscribe. But most importantly, keep it locked. Everything's gonna be just fine. Everything's gonna be okay. Just take one step at a time. That's what the leaflets say.